The year is 1972. Five men, disgruntled with the direction the country is going, don futuristic jumpsuits and headgear and emerge from a decaying metropolis to speak about the de-evolution of man through music. The name they adopt, DEVO, sounds like the title of a B-movie, but that's the real-life story of the new wave band out of Akron, Ohio, which had a string of hits during the 1970s and 80s. In recognition of their impact and contribution to the music industry, this summer, the city of Akron installed an image of the band outside of a local landmark. The story comes to us from IdeaStream senior arts producer David C. Barnett and Gabe Kramer.
Dozens of people crowded Main Street in downtown Akron to watch a parade. But it didn't quite look like a typical parade.
Akron is uniquely weird.
And the celebration was for a group of musicians who were a lot different from the average performer in pop music 40 years ago.
And DEVO, I think, represents our unique weirdness.
That's when DEVO first broke into a music scene that had gotten stale and predictable.
I don't think what we did could have come out of like a cosmopolitan area like New York or Los Angeles.
DEVO arose from the ashes of an industrial powerhouse. Akron started off the 20th century supplying tires for the thousands of cars sliding off Detroit assembly lines, but by the 1970s, that industry was on the ropes due to foreign competition. And the city's economy was further decimated by the growth of suburban department stores and movie theaters that left vacant buildings downtown.
Everything was crumbling. The old infrastructure was down, nothing new had taken its place.
Gerald Casale and his DEVO bandmates were art students at Kent State University who decided to use music as a way to comment on what was happening to the world around them.
So there we were in that environment of decay and degeneration and bringing something out of it, out of the pain.
And they also had teenaged fans like Paul Nagel.
We were growing up in this area that was transforming and devolving instead of evolving. So we kind of latched onto it, and there's a lot of it was tongue-in-cheek, but a lot of it was very earnest.
Robin Renee is another longtime DEVO fan who chuckles when she looks at a merch table with books and even red flower pot hats that are part of the uniform of band members and fans alike.
They sort of make fun of, but also participate in the commercial aspect of, selling merchandise, obviously, and it's just a great commentary and a great way of approaching our weird world and speaking some honesty, Are we not pimps?
We are DEVO. But such artful intentions didn't exactly make for hit songs. DEVO remained a quirky cult band until 1977 when they recorded a remake of a rock and roll classic.
This is, like one of those songs that totally represents the mainstream tradition of rock and roll.
DEVO biographer David Giffords says the band took the Rolling Stones' swaggering "I Can't Get No Satisfaction" and deconstructed it into a robotically rhythmical ballad that sounded like it had been manufactured in an Akron factory.
The beat on this song is insane. It's almost, it seems unplayable, and it's so you're going from straight 4/4 traditional rock riff and one of the great classic rock songs, and to turn it on its ear the way they did and make it sound like an entirely new kind of music, not just version of the song.
It came out of an impromptu experimental jam session, and it was actually my brother Bob that started the strange twisted guitar line that formed the basis for it, the almost architectural geometric line that was just played staccato and like robotic. And Alan started drumming to that, and his drum beat was so strange it sounded like, to me, reggae, because it was backwards. And so I started jokingly playing a bass line that I thought was like a twisted version of a reggae bass line. Bob Casale said, "Try Satisfaction." So Mark started singing Satisfaction over it. I started making the changes to Satisfaction, the chord changes. And that was that. We stopped because it was making us laugh in a good way, not like, ha ha ha, nasty joke. It was like, that's so cool, I don't believe it.
I can't get me no satisfaction. And I try, and I try, and I try. I can't get no.
And then we had to play it for Mick Jagger. It was considered parody what we did because it was such a mutation. So he had to okay it, and Mick listened to it, and after about 30 seconds, he danced around in the room in New York in his lawyer's office and said, "I like it, I like it."
Ironically, the DEVO remake of Satisfaction first took off in London, home to the original song. When the band got money from Warner Brothers Records to promote their creation, they continued their innovative ways by shooting a music video 3 years before the invention of MTV. Cleveland photographer Janet McCosker was hired by the British press to document the production.
As Liverpool might have been a mythical music city for us, because the Beatles came from that, they thought Akron was this mythical music place. And I just wanted to show them one of the bands they loved in their own hometown.
The filming took place on the stage of the ornate Akron Civic Theater, by then a faded remnant of the city's glory days.
Being guys that were firmly plunked in Akron as our cradle of de-evolution, we always loved this place.
The band members were dressed in yellow hazmat suits, once worn by Akron rubber workers. Writer David Giffel says performing a devolved song in a devolved theater was intentional.
And to film their video in it when it was, in its own decline, I think was kind of represents what artists do when the prevailing culture starts to implode or does implode. The first people who come in and pick up the pieces and find them interesting are creative people.
The parade celebrating DEVO last summer came to an end right outside the Akron Civic Theater, where the band had shot their groundbreaking video 4 decades ago. A wall-sized blow-up of one of Janet McCosker's iconic photos had been mounted over an empty storefront next door. It was made to look as though it was 1978 again, and the band members, life-sized in their bright yellow hazmat suits, standing in front of the Chili Dog Mac Diner, had returned to the place where their careers took off.
For a link to the DEVO website, go to applause.ideastream.org, where you'll also find additional content about the band at our Sound of Applause homepage. And if you'd like to check out the installation in person, you can find it at 182 South Main Street in Akron, Ohio.